Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about how to add Wireguard to your self-hosted home lab environment. So there is a product I found out on the net called WG-Easy, and it provides a very easy way to implement a Wireguard server on your network and manage it. All self-hosters need safe and secure access to their home labs. I like to use Apache Guacamole, which is covered in my What is Apache Guacamole video, because it provides access to only the servers you might want to provide access to, as opposed to providing access to the entire network. Sometimes there's a need to connect remotely and to be able to access the entire network, though, and that's what WireGuard's good for. So WireGuard is a fast, secure, and simple VPN tunnel. Unfortunately, WireGuard is a protocol and not really an end-user program. There's been several programs written out there to try to make WireGuard easy, but it's a series of configuration files, and this product makes it easier to use. So this presentation shows how to build a WireGuard Easy server with a web portal to authorize users. Okay, let's turn around and install WireGuard today. Begin with, I have a virtual machine that I'm using, and the reason for that is because I don't have kernel support in my main host for WireGuard, so that's why I'm using the virtual machine. And it didn't take very much of a virtual machine. I'm running Ubuntu 2004, and I gave it 4 gigs of memory. I could probably get by with 2 gigs of memory because it's just the server version. So, first of all, what we want to do is we want to install Docker. Going out here and installing Docker with the curl command. Done this before. Docker has a very nice script to go off and install curl or install Docker with the curl command. Now that Docker's installed, I want to add myself to the Docker group, and I'm going to go ahead and do a new group Docker. And you can see if I type groups, I'm now in the Docker group. So now I want to install docker-compose. Now I'm going to sudo over to superuser. I'm going to do a mkdir on WG-Easy as a hidden file, hidden folder. I'm going to go ahead and move into that hidden folder. And then I'm going to go get this particular GitHub project called WG-Easy. And it's downloaded. I want to go ahead and edit the Docker Compose, which came down as a part of that. And now in this Docker Compose, the author has set up the host as Raspberry Pi.local. In this particular case, I'm going to make it wireguard.scotti-BYTE.com, which is my domain. Down here you have an optional password. The password is for the portal itself. And the portal is where you define and assign new users. So set this to something really super secret. I'm going to set it to testing 1, 2, 3. Later on, and change it to something else. In terms of a WireGuard port number, it will default to 51820. You can change the WireGuard port to anything you want to use. You just have to open that port on your router. And as far as the WireGuard address, this is its address that it uses for client machines that come into the network. And then a default DNS is something else. So we'll go ahead and say fine. Go ahead and use 10. We'll just tell it to use 10.5.0.x. It's a private domain. And then we'll say non-routable domain, another private address. And then we're going to say go ahead and use 1.1.1.1 Cloudflare as our DNS. And then I'm going to leave this one commented out. Basically, this restricts you only to particular networks, but I'm going to allow the person that comes in via WireGuard to also go out to the internet. And by leaving that commented out, that's what I assure will happen. So WeJoule, WG Easy is the name of this thing. There's the ports. And there's everything. That's all there is to it. So I'm going to do a Control X, and I'm going to save it and exit. Oh yeah, there's one more thing. I want to go back in here. This says 3.8 for the version number. I'm going to make it 3 because my Docker does not like 3.8. It doesn't see it as a valid value. All right, so now that I've done this, all I have to do is do a docker-compose space up to test it out. It goes ahead and pulls the Docker container down, as you can see here. And the interface is up and running. We set up WireGuard to operate at port 51820 by default. And in order to test out the web interface, they put the web interface at port 51821. And you'll remember that our password that we set up was testing 1, 2, 3. And now you can see that it is up and running. So all you need to do in order to use this is to click on New Client. And you can give the new client a name like Scott Test is what I'm going to do. Create that entry. And then you can either download the WireGuard configuration file, or if you loaded WireGuard on something like a phone or a tablet that has a camera, you can click the QR code and you can scan the QR code. So now I'm going to add my Scott Test client profile over to my phone. So what I'm going to do here is bring up the display, and I am going to wake up my phone, and here's my phone. And now what I'm going to do is press the plus sign on the phone, and I'm going to say scan from QR code. I'm going to use my camera to take a picture of the code. And I'm going to go ahead and call this tunnel name Scott Test. And create the tunnel. And now what I'm going to do is turn the Scott Test tunnel on. Go ahead and bring the phone off here. And you'll be able to see that down here it says that Scott, it's very hard to see, but it says that Scott has got an address of 10.5.0.2, you remember from our setup. And then as it does data, it will actually track how much data is being sent and received. However, since I'm on my own network, it's kind of a moot point doing this. The other capability you have is that you can have a client here. What I'll do is I'll go back to the phone and I will disconnect the phone. And now go ahead and tap that, turn that off. And now you notice that if I turn the setting off here for the client, that client won't be able to connect. Or I can turn it on to enable it again. And of course I can always look at the QR code to scan it again, and I can always delete the client to remove it from the configuration. And you can add as many clients as you want. In our WireGuard installation, one of the things that we did was we gave it a domain name. So now I'm going to go into Nginx Proxy Manager and I'm going to define that domain name as a reverse proxy. So I'm logging into my Nginx Reverse Proxy Manager, going to Proxy Host, adding a new proxy host. We're going to add wireguard.scotti-BYTE.com. We're going to put that to address 192.168.50.234. And we're going to put in the forward port to be 51821 because that was the forward port for the web interface in order to manage this thing. And I'm going to go ahead and say block common exploits. I'm going to go over to SSL, and previously I had an SSL certificate for WireGuard, so I'm going to find it. If you didn't have one, you could go ahead and request one. And I'm going to say force SSL, and I'm going to save this out. So the advantage of this is that now, if we go down to wireguard.scotti-BYTE.com, we go right to the WireGuard login page, where I can type in testing 1, 2, 3, and I can see the web interface, and I can create new clients. The other advantage that it has is that the name wireguard.scotti-BYTE.com will then always point to my wide area network address, so that when WireGuard clients try to connect from the outside, they'll know where to go, as opposed to always having to hard code a WAN address. So that's why you're going to need a domain name in order to do this. In summary, WireGuard provides a more reliable mobile connection than OpenVPN because it handles network changes and network interruptions better. WireGuard has a good 20% less overhead than OpenVPN. WireGuard is more secure and reliable than L2TP with IPsec or point-to-point tunneling protocol from Microsoft, which is the original point-to-point tunneling protocol available in Windows 95, I believe. And then SSTP, Secure Socket Tunneling Protocol, is integrated with Microsoft Windows since Vista, and it uses a 2048-bit SSL TLS certificates for authentication, and then 256-bit SSL keys for encryption. But again, like PPTP, it's proprietary. And then Internet Key Exchange version 2 is similar to L2TP, and it pairs with IPsec. You can see a lot of companies maybe even still use that. And so from this video, you can see that WG-Easy was a very easy to configure version of WireGuard. And basically what it is WireGuard with a web front end to allow you to manage your clients, which is secure, fast, and reliable. And most importantly, WireGuard is open source. Anyway, thanks for visiting with me today. And if you like what you see, please give me a subscribe and like on the channel, and we'll see you on down the road next time. Thank you.